Jeff Proctor, thanks for joining me today. Why is the inmate population particularly vulnerable to an outbreak like the novel coronavirus?
It's good to be with you. Thanks for having me. There are a number of kind of underlying health conditions that make people particularly susceptible to the ravages of COVID-19. One of those is a liver disease called hepatitis C. A massive percentage of our prison population here in New Mexico has hepatitis C. A lot of folks are in prison on drug-related charges. That is generally a disease that's associated with intravenous drug use. And once Hep C gets into a drug-using population, it spreads like wildfire. So that's one. And then a lot of other indicators that sort of point toward incarceration in a person's life are other like adverse health conditions. Diabetes is a big one, especially with the native incarcerated population here. And then a lot of folks have asthma and also other kind of lung-related diseases and COPD. So you have folks who are, by whatever reason they ended up with them, people who have a lot of health conditions that make them super, super vulnerable to the possibility of dying from this. And then we've also got more than 300 people over 60 years old in our prison population. And as we all know, older people have really borne the brunt of the death toll of this.
Right. So looking at the inmate population here in New Mexico, what do the testing numbers look like, and how many people have been tested and have tested positive among inmates and corrections officers?
So the last count I have is as of yesterday. There were 13 inmates. Just for context to start, there are a little more than 6,500 people incarcerated in New Mexico's 11 prisons. That doesn't include the jails. So we're just talking about the prisons now. A little more than 6,500 inmates and about 1,800 staff. That includes the corrections officers themselves and administrative staff in the prisons. As of yesterday, they had tested 13 inmates. 11 of those results had come back negative. 2 were pending. They had tested 63 staff, and 4 of those had come back positive, the other 59 negative.
Okay, so there have been 2 important events and announcements this week. Can we start with the New Mexico Supreme Court decision on rejecting a request from the American Civil Liberties Union? Can you talk about that court case?
Sure. So the ACLU was one of the petitioners, along with the Law Office of the Public Defender and the New Mexico Criminal Defense Lawyers Association. They essentially filed an emergency petition with the state Supreme Court alleging that the lack of testing and the lack of other precautions being put in place by Governor Lujan Grisham and the Corrections Department amounted to a violation of the Eighth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Most people will be familiar with that codicil as cruel and unusual punishment. So that was sort of the base allegation, and the relief they were seeking in the petition was for a large-scale release of inmates, those who were medically vulnerable, like we just talked about, and those who were incarcerated on nonviolent crimes and had nonviolent pasts. So the argument from the petitioners, again, was you're not testing anybody. The sanitation efforts within the prisons are insufficient. It's impossible to socially distance in prisons, and you guys aren't giving anybody any soap. So we have an instance where this is cruel and unusual punishment. You might have somebody in who's 62, has asthma, and is in jail for marijuana possession. Should that be a death sentence? That was essentially the argument from the petitioners. The argument from the administration was, we've done enough. We don't have any positive cases. No Eighth Amendment violation. Ultimately, what the court decided was that the petitioners did not meet one standard within cruel and unusual punishment, and that's deliberate indifference. One of the things that you would have to prove to reach that Eighth Amendment violation is that the administration, the government in this case, was deliberately indifferent to the health and safety of inmates. The justices deliberated for a little more than half an hour and came back with a unanimous decision that it was not a violation.
And then this week, the governor also made an announcement What was that announcement, and what do you think will happen moving forward?
So the announcement this week kind of follows up a conversation that kind of finally got started in public last week about this really significant lack of testing of inmates and staff within the prisons. At the end of last week, they told us, in response to a question I asked at one of the virtual news conferences, they told us that they were going to use the Sentinel surveillance testing program to start testing inside the prisons. This week, they announced an actual plan for that. By next week, a week from today, I guess, the 13th, they've promised to test 100% of the staff in the prisons and 25% of the inmates. They also announced that they would be testing every new arrival in the prisons and quarantining every new arrival for 14 days. In terms of what will happen next, I hope what we're going to see is a lot more testing in the prisons.
All right, Jeff Proctor, thanks for your coverage. Stay safe.
Thank you. It's good to be here.